This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, very good. So with that, I just want to give a little brief overview of, if you're not familiar with LHT and why is the township doing a trail segment, I just want to let you know that this is something we've been engaging in for really 20 years with the Lawrence Hopewell Trail folks. The recreation and open space has always been a critical part of Hopewell Township's master planning. We just recently updated our recreation open space element, which is part of the master plan. We've been actively working with the Lawrence Hopewell Trail folks really since the inception of that organization. And what I really like to emphasize with this particular trail, this is really the benefits of a public and private partnership. It's not just Hopewell Township and the LHT. We have many partners on these trail segments. We have private interests like BMS and educational testing services. We have nonprofits like the Watershed Institute and other government agencies like Lawrence Township and also Mercer County. So we really benefit and we leverage the power of all these organizations to present and develop a regional trail network. This particular trail segment that we're going to discuss we have been working on starting in probably 2018, but then in 2019 we got funding through the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. They have a regional trails program. We acquired some grant funding to help offset the design and construction costs that we anticipate with this project. And with that, I'm going to quickly turn it over to the LHT folks, Becky and Eleanor. I just want to mention that the LHT segments have been open to the public since 2004. They have been developing and working and planning these segments really for 20 years now. And so the segment that you're going to hear about is really some of the last pieces of this puzzle of a 22-mile loop that's really been in the works for 20 years. And in Hopewell's part, we have two more segments. This is one of them that will help close that 22-mile loop and really provide a connected network for the region. So we're excited about that. Eleanor and Becky, if you would like to take over.
It will be Becky.
Okay. Becky,
I'm trying to unmute myself. Sorry. So
I can hear you.
Thank you, Jim. And
so I put up a map of the LHT trail network, and just let me know what you want me to do.
Okay. So let me just start by saying, as many of you know, because I've looked at the people who've joined us, and hello to many of my friends. Some of this most of this you know. But for those who don't know the LHT as well, Lawrence Hopewell Trail is a biking and walking trail that connects us to each other and to places of work, parks, and other recreational opportunities, shops, restaurants, and schools, nature, and historic sites in central New Jersey. We like to think of the LHT as an incredible community asset. In fact, the effort to create the trail was launched 20 years ago. In February 2002, we at BMS invited representatives of the public sector, the two municipal governments, Mercer County government, and the state departments of transportation and environmental protection, as well as the private sector representatives of nonprofits and other organizations and community activists and trail enthusiasts to join in a collaborative effort to build a trail. Our thinking was that it is by enabling people to get together in such an inclusive way on the trail, open to everyone, not in a car, but by walking or riding on a bike or on skates or a skateboard, that would be great for our community. I know for me, living first in Hopewell Borough, when we started building the trail, it was important for my young son to be able to get to his friends with some independence by biking or walking to their houses and their neighborhoods. I know that many of you can relate to this. And for the many years I lived in Hopewell Township, it has been a fabulous asset that let me get out of my car and out into the community, where I could meet friends and neighbors for recreation and exercise as well as to enjoy nature. So Jim, I know you've got some photos. Maybe you could just kind of scroll through those as I'm chit-chatting. So we've got some great photos of various parts of the trail. So we
Yeah,
could go
so,
to the
so
next.
for the benefit of everybody, this is the overall trail network. If you go to the LHT site, you can see that. Mark will discuss this a little bit more in depth a little bit later, but so here are some of the trails. These are representative photos of the trail segments before and after our segment. So if you're traveling along the segment, you're very likely to see something like this.
These are all exquisite views of the LHT. And I think, you know, for all of us, it's just been such a thrill as we've made progress in creating the trail. I want to note that the LHT does not exist in a vacuum. It connects to the 800-mile circuit trails of Greater Philadelphia, the Delaware and Raritan Canal, and the Appalachian Trail reaching from Maine to Florida. So in the beginning, early on in our efforts to build this trail, we had one kind of naysayer say, "This is the trail to nowhere." As you can see from the various organizations that I just mentioned, the Appalachian Trail from Maine to Florida, the Circuit Trail Coalition, we connect. Hopewell and Lawrence Townships connect in such a big way. Now, we're very excited to be part of an effort to create a countywide network of trails through Mercer County. We're building on good efforts of Mercer County Planning Department and all of Mercer County government and its Transportation Management Council and its Bike Pedestrian Task Force to make the county into a biking mecca. My words, not theirs. So, and again, originally, some of frankly, for the most part, everybody has been very, very positive about the LHT from the very beginning. But some naysayers expressed some fears that the trails would bring crime to our communities and that property values would plummet. It couldn't be farther from the truth. In fact, our trails are in very safe neighborhoods and open spaces. A recent case study of home property values around Mercer Meadows, the county park situated in both Hopewell and Lawrence Townships, specifically called out that 15.8% of the value of properties within a half a mile of the LHT are attributable directly to trails and parks. Whoa. We knew that conceptually, but to have that kind of verification was really gratifying for us. So I would say, please accept this invitation to attend or to get further involved with our many recurring activities, such as the Saturday Morning Walking Club. We meet the second Saturday of every month. And next time we get together will be in the second Saturday of May, when we're going to actually unveil an amazing history project. And we'll start at Bristol-Myers Squibb campus off of Princeton Pike. Then we would invite you to join us at the Full Moon Ride. This is an event that, frankly, is so unique in my personal experience in my whole life, where we are in Mercer Meadows, riding the trails at night under a full moon. This will be taking place on July 9th this year. And this will be the first time we've had this event for more than a couple of years, unfortunately, because of COVID. And then finally, Trail and Treat, which is in Village Park and Lawrence Township on October 30th. Really, really fun family-friendly event where kids come out in their costumes, etc. So we want to end, we want to thank the people of Hopewell and Lawrence Townships for their generosity in sharing their spaces with each other, with us, and with visitors to this very special place. We do believe the LHT has enhanced the quality of life in this area, and we hope everyone agrees. So thank you, Jim, for the opportunity to kind of talk about that.
Yes, thank you, Becky. Thank you, Eleanor. And thanks for all your hard work that you've done over these many years to help develop this amazing regional gem for Mercer County. So with that, I'm going to turn it over now to Mark Katriniak. He's going to get into the substance of this particular trail design.
I'm gonna
Mark,
drop
are
your
you
screen
able
and
to-
jump. I'm gonna drop your screen and jump to mine, Jim.
Yep. Let me just stop
Alright.
sharing. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So that everyone can see that. You can all see my screen, right?
Yep,
Yes.
you're good.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right, thanks everyone. Thanks, Jim. As Jim mentioned, I'm here to specifically discuss the what we call the Mount Rose Distillery West segment. That may be renamed in the future. As you saw before on this map here, this is the overall LHT map. Up to the north end of the loop here, where you see this pink arrow, is the location of this specific project. Zooming into that a little bit tighter, which is labeled on the official LHT map currently as the Hillman property. You'll notice that sort of I've circled the project area in a pink color there. To the north is to the top there, to the southwest is the Watershed Institute and the Princeton Farms neighborhood. To the east and sort of southeast is the Mount Rose Preserve. And I'm going to take you, before we talk about the specifics of this particular project, I want to take you to the southeast area of Mount Rose just briefly, just to kind of explain how this ties into it. Not only does this complete, this is one of the two remaining segments of the loop, at least two segments that have yet to be constructed within Hopewell Township. Those are identified by the orange dashed lines on the LHT map. Taking you over to the Mount Rose neighborhood and how a lot of this kind of ties in here. The project that we're speaking of tonight is just off this map to the left of this image, and you can see sort of the white trail coming in. This is the portion of the trail that's been constructed. The blue here has been constructed as well too. The green is the other future piece that is not yet built in Hopewell Township. But what's important here is the trail now connects, or once this project that we're talking about tonight is constructed, we're furthering the connection through the Mount Rose neighborhood, through the Mount Rose Preserve. One important component to this that I think is going to help this overall project is that the township is working on a parallel project presently, which is shown in pink in the center of this location area here, that will connect a parking lot owned by the township to the LHT. So there will be parking and signage along Carter Road that will create a central parking area and a jump off point to the north end of the loop trail that will provide an opportunity for individuals to park in this area and then use segments of the trail, very similar to what currently goes on today in Mercer Meadows Park, where you have central parking facilities that directly connect to the trail. So by connecting the parking here to the existing segments and future segments of the LHT, we have a connection. We have parking directly tied to this northern section of the loop trail. Focusing on the Mount Rose Distillery segment of the project, this particular project, as Jim mentioned, is being funded through a grant from the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. This is comprised of an approximately 2,000 linear foot segment of trail. It will be 10 feet wide, similar to the balance of the rest of the LHT. Will serve pedestrian and bicycle facilities. There's a small footbridge roughly in the center of the project that traverses a portion of the Honeybrook Branch tributary. So there's a couple of nice stream view sheds through here. At the north end, it connects to the existing LHT, which you really can't see on this image, but the LHT trail terminates right now just opposite Bailey Drive. It will connect at the north end, traverse through two properties, and terminate at a grade crossing or a striped crossing at the intersection of Weldon Way and Moores Mill Mount Rose Road. To give you an idea of kind of where this project has been going, it started really officially in about 2019 with grants from the DVRPC. We spent a good portion of 19 and 20 in the environmental screening and design survey phases and preliminary design. 2021, we applied for and obtained all of the necessary environmental permits we need from the various agencies. There's a lot of overlap here, but we have permits from Soil Conservation, from Mercer County, the NJDEP for flood hazard area general permits and freshwater wetlands permits, and we have Delaware and Raritan Canal Commission permits. We are moving into the what I call the construction prep phase of the project, really starting with this public information center, information meeting, with an attempt to get further publication of the project out, get some community feedback. We'll make final recommendations on the design elements to the governing body, and prepare final bid documents with the idea that we would award a construction contract this year, start construction hopefully later this year into next year, with the construction completion sometime in 2023. This project, this 2,000 linear foot segment of the trail, really breaks into sort of three major pieces, which I've kind of color coded here for simplicity's purpose here. What you see sort of in gold on what I'll call the west half of the project, it traverses through lot 18, through a established easement that's been established for quite a while. That portion of the trail will be constructed as a stone dust trail. On the easterly leg, that parcel that's highlighted in green is actually an open space parcel owned by the Delaware and Raritan Greenway. That segment will be constructed of porous asphalt, which is a component that we've constructed several segments of the trail on. We find that performs very well. It has less of an environmental impact, and it's much simpler to maintain. At the southern end of the project, we have a marked crossing at the intersection of Moores Mill, Mount Rose Road, and Weldon Way. This is an image of Moores Mill, Mount Rose Road looking east, or sort of heading in from the west, looking at the intersection of Weldon Way. You can kind of see from the photograph that it's a straight alignment, a flat alignment. It's currently posted for 25 miles an hour. And I want to focus a little bit on the intersection crossing. As what I'll call the southerly terminus of this trail segment will terminate at the intersection of Weldon Way and Moores Mill, Mount Rose Road. And it will terminate with what I'll call a conventional intersection design. It'll be marked crosswalks, high visibility crosswalks, which you see depicted here in sort of a ladder form, along with landing ramps at the corners of the intersections. Landing ramps only, no extensions of sidewalks or anything, just landing ramps for ADA purposes. One of the key elements to the LHT, many of the newer segments that are being built, and one of the things that is a hallmark, as Becky mentioned, an inclusive trail here, is that we are constructing this trail to be fully ADA accessible. So part of that is ADA accessible ramps at the intersections that would connect with the on-street portions of the trail within the Princeton Farms neighborhood. And again, stripe crossings at the intersection here. One of the key elements of this project is sort of traffic concerns were raised with the initiation of this project. So we took a hard look at not only just this initial design here, but a couple of different options of how we would address that crossing at Moores Mill Road. And I'm laying out here just for general discussion and some feedback from the public are some options on traffic calming. So what you see is the base intersection layout is the configuration that we intend to construct as part of the trail connection. And then ways we can enhance the safety and visibility of that area would be, as a first option, and the simplest option, is we would install, in addition to the intersection you see on the image, we would install advanced trail and pedestrian crossing signs, similar to what you see here in the images. And we would put one or more on each approach as we could, depending on how much visibility we have for the intersection area. We would one or more here. I've just shown you one for simplicity purposes here. As a second option, this is a speed hump plan where we would install, in addition to the conventional intersection as I described, there would be on each approach, there would be one speed hump along Moores Mill, Mount Rose Road that would be striped with conventional striping for a traditional speed hump, where you have sort of a graduated with striping as you approach and an arrow marking on the speed hump. So these are gradual raised humps that help to slow down approach traffic along the intersection approaches. And you see some renderings at the bottom of the image of what those approaches would look like with the speed hump. And I'm not going to get into the design details of pros and cons yet. I just want to lay out the couple of options that we've kind of laid out here, and we can get into some feedback from the public later. The third option would be, in lieu of a speed hump on the approaches, is we would convert the crossing, the striped crossing, we would convert that to a raised crosswalk. So it's similar to a speed hump in the sense that the pavement is elevated and raised. However, at the top of that hump, it's widened and the crosswalk is flattened out. So the approach ramps occur right at the crosswalk areas. And again, you have some renderings of how that would look at the intersection. What that does is it essentially puts the pavement crosswalk at the same elevation of what the theoretical sidewalk would be, so that the pedestrians crossing are slightly elevated from the roadway, slightly have better visibility, and then you have the speed hump that would serve to slow traffic at the crossing point. And then lastly, a fourth option that we could employ with traffic calming techniques would be the conventional intersection striping, and we would employ rumble strips along the roadway using thermoplastic pavement striping, very similar to what's on the center line. It's placed perpendicular to the roadway in layers that create a rumble. And the closest location I could describe for you would be Scotch Road in the area of Pennington Titusville Road, at the approaches to the stop bar where rumble strips are currently employed. They're at Pennington Harborton Road as well too, along Scotch Road. We feel any one of these three traffic calming, really four traffic calming options, I would recommend the signing as option one in all instances. But the three traffic calming options we have for, I'm just going to go from last to first here for a little quick recap here, would be rumble strips, a raised crosswalk, and or speed humps. Those three potential options would be the appropriate types of traffic calming elements that could be employed here if the community felt that it was something that they would like to see as part of this area, as part of the improvements. These could be installed at initial construction. They could be installed at a later date. We can discuss those options with the governing body. Traffic calming over the years has gotten a lot more regulated. It is now an official traffic control device, very similar to a stop sign or a yield sign. So there are very specific applications for them. Probably when they first came out, they were kind of misused in a lot of locations, or a lot of one-size-fits-all type approaches. So they were misused in a lot of locations. A lot of people didn't understand them. They've gotten a lot more uniform and regular in their application. I would think any one of these three would be appropriate and applicable, but I will say that each one has their benefits and their detriments. Rumble strips, for example, are noisy, so residents immediately adjacent to the area may not be too happy about the noise. The humps and things are not particularly loved by ambulance drivers and other things, so there are pros and cons with different things, but we wanted to present these options for the public to get some feedback. That's kind of the end of my presentation. I think now we can, Jim, we can have open it up to either a Q&A or some general discussions or questions, concerns from residents, but we'd like to hear general feedback on, would you like to see traffic calming options with the crosswalk or not?
Okay. Mark, if I could go to a couple questions that popped up in the chat.
Yep.
Mr. Andrews asked, what are the thoughts and work going on to connect this section of the LHT with Hopewell Borough? And there's a similar question. Are you considering starting the LHT extension to Hopewell Borough? and they mentioned that it shouldn't go through pristine understory in the summit, on the summit of Mount Rose between Moores Mill Road and the borough. Do you have any
Well,
thoughts for that?
Well, I can tell you that the LHT is actively looking at many options for connecting the LHT to the borough. I know that's a strong desire to continue to do that. It's not the subject of this particular grant. This grant's very specifically limited to this segment of the trail, so it's not part of this project, but it is something that is being actively looked at. I've walked several paths and several potential routes with Becky and Eleanor, myself, in terms of looking at other areas. So it is something that that the LHT, I know, is definitely considering. I don't know if Becky has any more information on that, but it is something that they hope to see soon.
Well, I can say this to you. As I said, I was living in Hopewell Borough, working at Bristol Myers Squibb when we got started with this. And it's been 20 years we've been looking at this. We don't have solutions yet. We do continue working actively with Hopewell Borough, and everybody's input is hugely important to us. So we thank you for any comments that you've got. Maybe Leslie Floyd and or Eleanor Horn would want to comment. Leslie, of course, has been with us. She's the Mercer County Planning Director and has been with us at the LHT since the very beginning. So she might have some information here.
Leslie,
Or
can you unmute?
I don't have anything to add about the Hopewell Borough connector, except that we continue to look at a variety of options. None of them is easy,
Yeah.
but we have not given up on the idea of making that connection. But as Mark said, that is specifically not what this grant will pay for. And it's not even clear that the Hopewell Borough connection would connect here. It's just a desire to make that connection.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps.
Yeah, and you can see it sort of in the project milestone timeline on the screen at the moment here, right? It took us about a year to obtain the necessary environmental permits for this segment of the trail. And I would say every segment of this trail that has been constructed to date and is under design has its own unique set of constraints, challenges, issues, whether it be environmental, whether it be property acquisition, right of way, traffic safety, traffic elements. The desire was to keep things off the road as much as possible. So every segment's looked at uniquely and it has its own unique set of issues. And in this particular case, the focus was really the environmental permitting involved with that. And it's what caused when I was with the township, it caused us to really pursue additional funding, because it was something that was going to, on a per linear foot basis, it was going to be a lot more expensive to construct than other segments of the trail, just by nature of the permits we needed to obtain for this project. So each piece is unique.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
have nothing to add to that, except that a year in environmental permitting is fast.
True.
Right. So I'll toss this one out to the LHT folks, if you can help me with this one. Actually, it was the subject of a discussion earlier today. A resident asks, are we considering starting? No, I'm sorry. Are there plans to increase signage through the Princeton Farms neighborhood so people can find their way to the LHT connection from Warrego Road?
I think
Yeah.
yes.
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 And any input you have would be welcome.
Yeah,
It's
just
It's not clear whether those will be, painted on the road or signs along the road, but we specifically have not put in those signs until there was someplace to go to after you leave
Right.
Princeton Farms.
Mark, could you go to that larger LHT map? I think it was in your presentation.
This one?
Yeah,
That one.
no, the overall map.
Oh, sure.
Thanks. So approaching from the south, this particular crossing, that the LHT is on Watershed Institute properties, and then it goes on to Warrego Road and then cuts into the Princeton Farms neighborhood. And yeah, we would certainly consider doing some additional wayfinding. I think wayfinding is always a good idea to make sure people know where they're going. I don't know that will be part of this specific project, but I know the LHT folks are always looking at putting appropriate signage where we need it. So if we get to that point, I don't think that would be a heavy lift to help guide folks to. I think it probably would be even more appropriate once this segment is constructed so we
Right.
get folks
Yeah,
where they're
Yes.
headed.
as Leslie mentioned, again, there was a concern. We had a similar concern in the Mount Rose Preserve too, before the other connecting segments were in existence. We didn't want to encourage, we don't want to get people trapped on a dead end loop, but within the last really 3.5, maybe 4 years, the portion of the trail in front of the Watershed Institute's property along Titus Mill Road was completed. Other improvements were made there to connect the existing trail connection there, the portion along sort of Wargo Road at the entrance there. But the portion of the trail within Princeton Farms was always an on-street area, and I also know that the LHT has been rebranding their signage and logo a little bit once it became part of the Circuit Trails Network. So I think I don't believe signage would be possible outside the project limits here. Again, the grant money is pretty specific to the limits that we can work with here for this project, but we can certainly I think benefit from wayfinding signage throughout as a separate element.
Right. So,
Yeah.
at this point, I think we have a small enough crowd, and I think we've had the bulk of the presentation. If anybody has any questions, Mark, I see some questions, some comments coming in about the speed crossing, or sorry,
Yep.
the appropriate treatment. So if anybody wants to just unmute themselves, and I think we could have just a open discussion at this point.
Yeah, maybe just anybody jumping on, maybe turn on your camera, unmute, and give us your name so we get it on the recording, so we know who's commenting.
Hopefully everybody should be able to unmute themselves if you on the bottom left corner.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Mr. Bradwell, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm on Twosmore Mill. Weldon Way is at Fourmore's Mill. I'm not too keen on the traffic calming devices. It's a lot of noise for not a lot of traffic that's going through. The speed limit is 25. People pulling up from Pennington Rocky Hill Road to get to 50 miles per hour, they literally need to floor their car before they hit that crossing. So I'm not against having a raised crosswalk or whatever, but like rumble strips or whatever that make noise, not really too welcome for people that live here. Because they make noise regardless of the time of day.
They do, yeah, and that's a big concern of rumble strips. I wanted to show it for the purpose of sort of being a complete in terms of all the possible options that would be appropriate at the intersection. But I would tend to agree with you that rumble strips, the biggest negative to rumble strips is that they do create noise and it becomes a nuisance for the residential neighbors. The speed humps do have a somewhat of a better ability to slow some traffic down to a degree. They are not necessarily encouraged by emergency services vehicles. Those become problematic. They're harder to maintain with snow, with plowing. So you feel traffic calming is necessary on the intersection, or
I don't think it's necessarily very necessary. I mean, I've lived here a long time. There's not been an accident. There's a lot of bikes that ride on the street.
Yep.
More cyclists that won't use the trail, but there's been no accidents here. And I think probably, just some signage. And I'm also worried about where the signage is going to be. Is it going to be like in the middle of people's front yards, or is it going to be on the right side of the road, which is across from me, which I'm okay with? But, there's been a lot of other stuff going on in this area with the PSENG and guardrails and all that on the road. And, this seems just like another, another thing to make the area a bit more busy than it needs to be.
Well, conventionally, what we would place would be signage like I'm showing you here on this image here. It would be traditionally placed on the right side of the road at each approach. So it would be 1 or 2 installations as you approach the crosswalk from either direction. So I generally tend to find that, usually you'll place signage such like I'm showing here, pretty much right at the crossing, right at the crosswalk location, and then 1 in advance, 150, 200 feet or so. And yeah, you have a little bit of a range. There's some regulation in terms of how far away it can be. You want it within certain distance for visibility, but you do have some flexibility. What we try to do with signage is, in that case, it would be placed very close to the edge of the road. So it would be within the public right of way, along the edge of the road. It wouldn't be right in the middle of any individual's lawns. And then we try to hit a property line or get close to one where we can, so it's
Yeah,
not dead center.
That was what I was going to say is if you put signage ahead of it, then placing it in between property lines is probably the best place. So
Yeah,
nobody's looking at it. But
right.
like the speed bumps and the traffic calming, not going to be welcome for people that live here. It's it's great for everybody else, but when you have to hear it every day, it's not a great thing.
Well, let me be clear. The design that you see on the image before you now is a conventional intersection design. It's a safe design. It's a standard compliant design, and it is certainly effective. It's no different than any other intersection you would see anywhere else. The high visibility crosswalks make it very effective for visibility to see that there's crossings. I mean, today somebody can cross there now legally. There's technically a legal crosswalk there because it's an intersection. It's just not signed and striped that way. What enhances the safety is the ADA compatible landing spots at the curb lines. The crossing signs only enhance just the visibility a little bit more. They would be placed at the crosswalks and then probably 1 more location in advance. That's a safe, compliant design. I don't believe on a 25-mile-an-hour roadway, I don't believe any traffic calming here is really necessarily or warranted. But we did want to provide it because we know that was some feedback from some folks in the area in the past.
Yeah,
And
I
sorry,
understand
Mark,
that
if I
too,
could
but,
just interject.
on Pennington Rocky Hill Road, they have the crossing for the bike trail there, and there's no traffic calming devices anywhere.
Right.
So on this road, which is the speed limit's almost half, I don't see the necessary part of that. And there's no houses on that section of the road. Here there are houses, so it affects people.
And Mark, so if I could interject too, as you showed in your presentation, there's nothing particularly troublesome in the geometry of this road. The approaches into the crosswalk, this proposed crosswalk are straight. You have good lines of sight.
Yep.
There's no vertical or horizontal curves, which would, present some kind of visibility issues for
Right.
either pedestrians or traffic. Correct?
That's correct, Jim. Yep.
Forgive me for jumping in, but isn't there a activated light at Pennington Rocky Hill at Bailey Drive?
There is.
Yes, there is.
Okay. I know I heard you say you said that I guess there was no traffic calming, not that there were no measures.
Well, but by traffic calming, I meant things in the road like speed bumps.
Speed humps and rumble strips, right.
Yeah, no, understood. Just wanted to make sure we were all saying the same thing.
I almost assumed from this that there would probably be those lights flashing for people to cross, but
no, we're not proposing any flashing lights at this crossing because of the residential neighborhood here too. I don't think it's appropriate for this location.
All right, Roger that. Good.
Mr.
All right, I'd
Andrews.
like to make a few comments. I think the rumble strips are too much. Probably the bumps are also too much. I'd like to see it start off with just the striping. But more than that, I see the trail coming in and making a sharp turn to cross the road. And as you've got it drawn there, you've got it drawn with a lot of shrubbery.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with the crossing on Carter Road, for instance, it is similar to this in that it comes along, makes a sharp turn, and there's a lot of wooded area and shrubbery there. The person using the trail has a very hard time seeing oncoming cars without stepping out into the roadway. You know, I've been on the Carter Road section coming in from what used to be Western Electric. And it's, this looks like a similar situation. It's difficult for the pedestrian, the cyclist to see up and down the road. So I guess part of this should be to give the trail user a good line of sight also, more than just the automobile people. So that the trail user can see up and down the road when he approaches it.
We did look at that, and unfortunately, as I mentioned before, every one of these segments of the project has its own unique set of constraints and restrictions. And the one critical difference I will say between, you know, comparing or contrasting this to the Carter Road segment is that the grades are much steeper at the approach to Carter Road. This here is very flat. And what you see here is right at this point here on the image where the crosswalk ends is the edge of pavement here. We have a small pipe crossing because we have the drainage ditch we have to maintain. So we have a landing here with an ADA compatible crosswalk location, and this is about 40 feet. So this is a pretty good straight distance here. Just to scale is makes it look sharper than it actually is. And the intent here actually is to encourage more of a pedestrian scale crossing as opposed to bicycles traveling at speed here too. But unfortunately, the direct turn is unavoidable because of the limitations we have with right-of-way and easements. I'll take it to our trail alignment map a little bit more here too. Is the alternative, if we were trying to create a straight trail, and we did look at this, we were limited by the right-of-way that we had available and the easement location. If we were to come straight across Moores Mill, Mount Rose Road at this location where the trail comes basically at 90 degrees to the road, what we would end up with was not only would we impact the residents on the south side of the road a little bit more, but we create what's known as a mid-block crosswalk, which becomes its own separate issue and safety issue. So we felt that a safer option was to cross at the intersection. It's where the grades were more conducive. The vegetation actually opens up here pretty good. That image you see with the shrubbery was actually overhead tree lines. It does open up here through the road. I can show you I have design detail plans to show that's pretty clear, but we've got a pretty good distance here where we think we've got the balance. I agree with you. I would like to have more of a straight alignment. We just don't have the ability to do that, unfortunately, with the limitations on right of way.
Is there a plan to remove some of the shrubbery, you know, where it makes the sharp right off of Weldon Way?
Right at the crossing, yeah. There will be some of that vegetation will be removed. We have supplemental plans going in, but we'll be clearing the vegetation to make sure we have a good line of sight at that location.
There's not a whole lot there, but
no, there's not. You can kind of see it here, but that shrubbery will be cleared so that we have a clear line of sight of the crosswalk on the approach.
And I'd like to add, so I don't know that we've gotten into those particular details on this segment, but just I think Mark alluded to earlier in his presentation, the township is working very soon this summer. We'll be working on that Carter Road segment, what we call the connector trail, from that parking lot to the Carter Road crossing, the existing crossing.
Yeah, that's this piece right here.
Correct. So leading to that crossing, we're going to be making part of that project, which we're doing in-house, is going to be making some improvements to the trail prior to the crossing. So as Mark is discussing some of the signage and the pavement markings in the roadway, you can do similar things on the path itself. Because if you think about it, a pedestrian and a bicycle approaching a road, you could treat it much like an intersection. So the plan on that particular section that Mark is showing now, we will have some striping, pavement markings on the bike path and pedestrian path, and we will have some signage, appropriate scaled signage that you would see on a trail for a bicycle, warning and cautioning pedestrians and bicyclists that there is essentially a road crossing coming up.
Yeah, and this is just shown as a right angle here, just schematically because of the scale of the image here. But as part of that connected trail here, that design is some of the tightness of that curve on the Carter Road approach gets softened a little bit with the in-house project by the township.
So
We have
I'd like to
Laura.
wrap this up if.
We have
um,
Laura.
Jim,
I-
before we wrap it up, I just would like
Yes.
to say a few words that I really,
Go ahead.
really appreciate the involvement from our residents there, around there. And as a part of township planning, we would make sure every possible way that this is a safe and enjoyable trail for everybody. At the same time, this is a great partnership for 20 years from private, government, corporates, everything, and we would like to continue it and making sure that everybody enjoys it safely. And township will go to the extent that to continue that precedence which has been set for past 20 years. So it's great to see the involvement from the residents in that area, but I just would like to promise you from the township part.
Yes, thank you, Uma. And yeah,
Thank you, Councilwoman. Yes.
I agree 100% that, I don't think I think we underestimate what an asset that the Lawrence Hopewell Trail is, not just for Hopewell Township residents, but really the entire Mercer County and those areas, towns that are beneficiaries of this. It's really a true gem, I think, in
Yeah.
Mercer County, that
Yeah,
we have
and-
a nearly 22-mile connected trail that's primarily off-road, that cyclists, bicyclists, skateboarders, strollers, walkers, hikers, bikers, birders can enjoy safely, and it's really a tremendous asset. I want to say,
I had an
Sure.
opportunity to walk with this Saturday for the National Trail Day celebration with the Becky and the 17, 20 other, 40 people showed up, Becky, for the walk this Saturday. And I'm
Yes.
still figuring, I've been a resident here for more than 20 years, and I'm still figuring out and exploring the trail part of it and how beautiful it is. And as Becky alluded earlier, that this is absolutely an asset for the homeowners here, which also adds into their property value,
Thank you,
besides
Uma.
enjoying the nature. Yeah.
Thank you.
and they remind me too that this isn't just a trail network. It's these take you to destinations like Rachel Carson Woods and Mercer Meadows. I mean, these are places to explore, and now you can get there by bike or walking. And it's really
And-
amazing that we have an alternate transportation network right in our doorstep here.
And not to mention the preserving the history along the trail there.
That's true.
Yeah,
Okay, I have one more question. As far as like, because I live here, the traffic calming devices, is that not going to happen? Or is there going to be another meeting where I have to, go in again to ask about this? Or is that, taken into consideration? And
Traffic calming is not a required part of the project. We initially had not planned on putting traffic calming in the project. That had some feedback from some local residents in the area, so we incorporated as part of the design, something we would consider. We felt that it was important not only to have this meeting, the primary function of this meeting was really to kind of talk about that and hear what the current community feeling is on implementing traffic calming. I'm not hearing an overwhelming concern. We've also looked at, I've been in discussion with the police. We've looked at, traffic records on this, accident records on this area. We've looked at traffic patterns in this area. I had looked at them when I was in-house for many years. I don't see a need to recommend traffic calming here too. Again, there's no inherent issues with safety or visibility here that would require those additional measures. If the general consensus of the public is that they'd rather not see them, then they would not likely be installed initially. We always have the ability to, address something later. As I indicated here, as part of my construction prep process here is, now that we have our environmental permits in hand, we have the permission. The traffic calming has nothing to do with the environmental permitting. So we have our permits in hand, which means we're green lighted from all the regulatory agencies to go out to bid. We would finalize our bid plans and go out to bid here. What I intend to do is make a final recommendation to the to the township committee in terms of what the project would entail. So that'll be part of a public meeting. So if there was any concern by the public, there would be a chance to express concerns there again too. We don't envision another outreach meeting at this time. You know, I think this is appropriate. I think, Jim, we could probably put these plans up on the website or something, and you know, if you keep the window
absolutely.
open for comment for a while. So if
I had
if-
some
I have a
guidance.
quick question before we end.
yes.
So the easement running through lot 18. Lot
Yes.
18 is a working farm. Is there going to be any consideration or signage on the township's end to make sure that people using the trail are not disruptive to the animals that are housed in that front paddock? Because it does run right by there, and that property is not a petting zoo. And I know there have been issues in the past with people giving things to those animals that they should not, simply because they were near the property.
The terms of that easement are quite complex, but what I will say is that there are elements of the easement. When that easement was negotiated with the township many years ago, there are requirements that actually fencing and landscape screening be installed. So there's going to actually be a visible barrier between the trail on the easement and that working farm property. So there will be some deterrents to sort of have direct access to the farm in that area. There's landscaping screening and a fence that will be installed along that area to help keep that barrier.
All right, well, that's reassuring. I grew up in the area, lived on Moores Mill many years, currently reside on Weldon Way, and I know the property owners were not a fan of that easement, and it may have been better for the project overall to go down the property line.
Yeah, and then unfortunately now the way the easement was negotiated, the easement is where the easement is, and it's not movable. So we had that was one of the other constraints that we had, and part of the location, I think one of the desires at the time was to place the easement along the common property lines there too, but the environmental constraints alone and the tributary branch of the Honeybrook there really prevented that from happening. We just had too many environmental constraints, so we placed it as close as we could to the property line, and then we added the provisions for the screening of vegetation and the fencing. But this segment actually of the Honeybrook, it's not by itself a Category 1 stream, but because it connects to a Category 1 stream in this sub-watershed, it has a 300-foot riparian buffer associated with it. So we were really unable to get it any closer.
Okay. All right. Well, we're coming up on the hour.
All right, what is the timetable for the council meeting for this? In the next one?
I'm not sure what specific meeting it will be at, but I don't know if we have a schedule for that yet, but I would say within the next month, we would make our recommendations for what would be included and would not be included. I'm hearing a general consensus that there's not a strong desire to see traffic calming elements as part of the project. So my recommendation would be to construct the intersection as a conventional intersection at this point with just advanced signage. No other measures as part of the project. But I don't know exactly what meeting that's going to be on.
That we'll have to determine that based
Yeah.
on obviously council committee schedules and when we get
Yeah.
to the
But you
point
have
of-
you have committee woman Perendari on. You have Uma on who's hearing this and knows what that concern is. So she'll make sure that that's brought up when.
Yeah,
And so what
I just would like to encourage everybody, if you have any additional concerns, that I think you can also get in touch with me on the township or Jim. And, we would like to hear from you also when it will be discussed. You can always express it there. But when it will be on the council meeting, it will be in the agenda well ahead of time. So you will be notified then.
Right. And in the meantime, I think Mark will post the preliminary drawings on the community development website.
Yep.
We'll post a notice too for anybody who was following this meeting, so they can go and peruse. And just with the understanding that they're preliminary, but close to final, but there's still a few details to be worked out. So if you have any comments, you can certainly forward them to us. And
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No.
with that, I want to thank everybody for your time. I appreciate your interest in this project. I want to thank Mark Katriniak. I want to say thank you to Becky Taylor and Eleanor Horn, Leslie Floyd. Appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you again to our residents, and I hope you follow this project. It's we're very excited to continue this very important projects and on the Lawrence Hopewell Trails. And with that, I will say good night and thank you, everyone. And we look forward to you seeing at a future event. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Take
Becky.
care.
Thank you, Eleanor. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, all
Thank you.
residents. Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
good. Thank you. Good talking.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mark. This was awesome.
Yes.
Left. Yeah.
Oh, he's
Thank
gone.
Mark and Jim.
Yeah, Jim. Yes. You are still here.
I am here. So
Yeah.
it looks
All
like.
right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Good talk.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.